Hello, welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be doing a flip through of how I set up my 2025 reading journal. This is the Leuchtturm 125 by 190 millimeter soft cover journal. I got this from Barnes & Noble. I think it was like 21 USD, which is kind of a lot for a little journal, but you know, it was the one that I wanted. And I will say I like it a lot. If you personally use like alcohol markers or paint or anything like that, I wouldn't recommend, because it would definitely bleed through. And if you don't like ghosting, which is like when you can kind of see on the other side of the page what you wrote, then I would definitely not recommend this one. But I personally don't mind either of those things, so for me it works perfectly. And as you'll see, I do like a really minimalistic setup. I just use those supplies that you can see on the right side of the screen. That's all I use for the whole journal, so for me none of those things are an issue. But anyways, let's get into what I have in my journal. This journal comes with an index page already in it, and the pages are already numbered, so that's pretty nice. So here's my index, pretty self-explanatory. I didn't like go in order of the actual page numbers. I went in order of when I added the page in. I have this awkward first page that I haven't put anything on yet, but here you can see the first spread. This is a series tracker, and you can kind of get a sense of the style of how I've been doing things in this journal. Pretty much just black and gray. This page I knew I had to include. I am interested in tracking how far along I am in the different series that I'm reading. This was especially helpful for me for manga, because there's been several occasions where I'm at like a bookstore or a game store and I see that they have manga and I see they have like some volumes, but I don't remember which volume I'm on or which ones I already own, because they don't really have titles, they just have numbers. So I did this pretty simply, just drew a square, and I'm filling them in with the gray marker if I have read the book, and putting a black dot if I own the book. And I left plenty of room at the bottom for if I start any series this year, I can add them on. So this page is pretty much the most important page in my reading journal. This is a list that I'm keeping of all the books that I read this year. And then on the other side, you can see my reading goals for the year. So on this page on the left, the only things I'm really interested in keeping note of are the book and the month that I finished it. I've seen some people's spreads where they add like their rating and the date they started it, the exact day that they finished it, the genre. For me personally, I'm not really interested, and my goal is to read 25 books. I think I can remember the genre and everything of each of the books that I read, so I don't need to keep track of it here. I am keeping track of it elsewhere in the journal, but as you can see, I left space to record. I think I made the lines for 26, and then of course I can add on more down at the bottom if I choose to. I have 9 reading goals that I want to prioritize this year. I feel like they're self-explanatory. If you want me to elaborate on any of them, you can always feel free to ask, but I guess the one that needs elaboration is the Buzzwordathon. That's a year-long reading challenge that Kayla from at Books and Lala does, and every month you have a different word that you have to include in a title of the books that you read. So as you can see, I've already got one down. I read This Thing Between Us, but I listed out the different words for this year and put a little box, and I'll fill the box in once I read the book. These are the supplies that I'm using. I'm using a Crayola marker to do the gray, a Micron plastic nib for a lot of the writing, and then for the really small writing, I'm using this Prismacolor liner. And then for the thick writing, up at the top where it says 2025 goals, I'm using another Prismacolor liner. This rating system is the last thing that I added into the journal. I rate my books based on vibes, but I wanted to write down kind of the criteria that I use to help me decide between the different ratings if I'm kind of not sure what I want to rate a book at the end of it. Pretty much most of the books that I read in a year are between 3.5 and 4.5 stars. If I'm not liking a book, if I'm not liking the writing style, I am very quick to DNF it, and I get like all my books from the library, so it's no stress to DNF a book. The only exception being my sibling and I will sometimes buddy read books that I get using my like monthly Audible credit, and those books we just pick like the most ridiculous sounding book that we can find. So sometimes those ones end up being 1 or 2 stars. 5 stars I am very picky with. I reserve for like all-time favorite books that changed me as a human being. So for a book to get 5 stars, that is a high order. For my January cover page, I just drew out a calendar, and I'm just marking off with a gray marker all of the days that I read in January. I'm not making a note of like which book that I'm reading, because like I said, I don't read that many books in a month, just like 1 or 2, so I can easily remember which book I was reading on those days. Yeah, that's everything for my cover page. Pretty simple. Now, this is how I've been journaling about each of the individual books. Down the side, I draw out a little book cover, and then I'm recording the title, the author, the star rating, the length, the format, and like where I got it, genre, whether or not it completes a buzzword-a-thon word, and whether or not it was written by a BIPOC author, because that was one of my reading goals, and it's something that I find important to track. For the purposes of my own personal goal, I have decided to include any author who self-identifies as Latinx in the BIPOC author category. I know, of course, you can be white and Latinx. Latinx is not a race, but I didn't feel that it was like appropriate or necessary for me to like hunt down photos of the author and like try to determine what race they're. I'm including any Latinx author as a part of my my goal to read from more BIPOC authors. And the last thing that I'm keeping note of is if there are any content warnings. This is very important for me to include in my reading journal because I give a lot of book recommendations. I like to recommend the books that I read to people that I know in my real life. I would say including the content warnings is like one of the most important things that I include in my reading journal for me personally. But yeah, then on the rest of the pages, I just journal about the book. If you read any of the words that are on the screen, you might get spoilers for the book, and you also might get a really personal insight into my life. So, you know, proceed with caution if you don't want either of those things. It's something that I am excited about, motivated to write in, and I find really valuable and important to write my feelings about a book, to interrogate the different themes and explore them. So for me, the practice of journaling has been awesome, and this setup works great. On the very last page, which is perforated in this journal, so I could always rip it out. If I continue using this brand and size of journal, I could rip it out and then keep it in the back pocket of the next journal that I use. But I just have some important notes about spacing and how I've been laying the different pages out, just so I don't have to like count out squares every single time or flip back and try to find previous pages and things like that. So that's been actually very helpful, and I'm really glad that I included that. So yeah, that's my personal reading journal setup, what I've been using, what's been working for me. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below and I will answer. And if you have any recommendations for books that you think I might like,
also feel free to leave those below. But yeah, thank you so much for watching my video, and I'll see you if I ever decide to post another one.